Để mình test thử coi được cái đây. Rồi mình nói vô. Để mình test coi đang không bắt cái ID. Đi.
In the previous video, we did a recap of the primitive data types, as well as getting a formal introduction to the string. In this video, we're going to take a look at operators, operands, and expressions. I've discussed very briefly what operators are, and we've used a few of them in expressions. Let's go deeper into that now. So what are operators? Operators in Java are special symbols that perform specific operations on 1, 2, or 3 operands and then return a result. In the example below, which we saw in a previous video, we use the addition operator as well as the multiplication operator. But there are many other operators in Java. So what is an operand? An operand is a term used to describe any object that is manipulated by an operator. So if we consider this code statement, here we are adding two numbers together. The plus here is the operator, and 15 and 12 are the operands. Variables used instead of literals can also be operands. Another example from a previous challenge. In the line above, byte value, short value, and int value are operands, as are the numeric literals. What's an expression? An expression is formed by combining variables, literals, method return values, which we haven't covered yet, and operators. They are a way of forming and combining those values to produce a result. In the line below, 15 plus 12 is the expression, which returns the value of 27. In the statement below, byte value plus short value plus int value is the expression. All right, let's officially explore operators using some code in JShell and start by typing int result equals 1 plus 2 semicolon. I'll add 2 forward slashes to include a comment and type the expected result. You've actually seen this operator in use before. We've already done some basic arithmetic using the addition or additive operator. In fact, we've used several operators already. But now I want to clarify and go through the major operators so that you can become familiar with them and know how to use them. You'll find that some operators tend to be used a lot more frequently than others. What I've done on this line is I've added a comment at the end of the line with 2 forward slashes to type out what the expression should evaluate to before we print it out. More on comments in a moment. How many operators would you say are in this statement? Well, we've actually got 2, the equal operator and the plus operator. The equal operator is also called the assignment operator, and it's used to assign a value. In this case, it's assigning what's on the right-hand side of the equals operator to the variable I've called result on the left. The value being assigned will be 3 in this case, which is the sum of 1 plus 2. The addition operator is a 2-operand operator. It adds the operand to the left of the plus sign to the operand on the right. So the expression is using 2 operands here. Most of the operators you are probably familiar with are used on 2 operands. An operand itself can be an expression and can contain multiple expressions and operands. In the next video, We'll cover single operand operators, which, as you may have guessed, perform a function on a single operand. But first, since this is the first time I've used a comment in code, let's pause a moment to talk about comments. Comments are ignored by the computer and are added to a program to help describe something. Comments are there for humans to read. We use 2 forward slashes in front of any code or on a blank line. Anything after the 2 forward slashes, right through to the end of that line, is ignored by the computer. So aside from describing something about a program, comments can also be used to temporarily disable code. Let's introduce another variable, int previous result equals result. I'll go ahead and change the value of result. Result equals result minus 1. I'll next include a comment there, and my comment is going to say what the expected outcome will be. Because result is 3, I am taking away 1, and the answer should be 2. And there we have it, result is now equal to 2. It's highly recommended that you use comments to describe what you are trying to achieve. Before we move on, you may be wondering about the value that is now in the previous result variable after the last statement. To summarise, I assigned result to previous result, and then I changed the value of result. Did this also change the value in previous result? That is a good question. Let's swing back and see if the values in the previous result and result variables are independent of each other. I'll just print the value of previous result using system.out.print. Even though I previously assigned result to the previous result variable, it did not get updated when result got a new value of 2. The value in previous result remained unchanged. When I assigned result to previous result, the value of result at that time was 3, and 3 was assigned to previous result. Any further changes to the value of result don't affect previous result, as I've just demonstrated. Before we move away from the addition operator, let's compare what happens if you use it on character data types. We've seen before that the char holds a single character, and the string can hold multiple characters. We've also discussed in the previous video that a string plus anything else gives us a string. But what about chars? Let's create 2 char variables and print them out using the addition operator, as I'll show here. Char, first char, equals single quote A, single quote, semicolon, char, second char, equals single quote B, single quote, semicolon. Let's print them out. System.out.print and then first char plus second char in parentheses. Can you guess what the result will be? Is it going to be A concatenated with B? Let's hit enter and see. So the result definitely does not look like A concatenated with B. Where did 131 come from? You might remember that we said chars are stored as 2 byte numbers in memory. When you use the addition operator with chars, it is these numbers in memory that get added together. The character values don't get concatenated. The decimal values for A and B are 65 and 66 respectively. If you don't know how I got these numbers, revisit the video on chars and use the symbol.cc website I showed you in that video to get both the Unicode and decimal values. So adding 65 and 66 will give us 131. This question has come up occasionally as a question, and I wanted to explain why this happens. If you really want to print A concatenated with B, you can concatenate these variables to a string. We'll do that next. System.out.print, left parentheses, double quotes, plus first char plus second char, right parentheses, semicolon. In this code, I am starting with 2 double quotes. This is called an empty string and is a valid string literal. We next use a plus on that string. Any plus after a string is going to be a concatenation operator, as I've stated several times, so I'll hit enter. And now the character A was transformed into a string and concatenated to an empty string, and the same occurred with the character B. It's probably unlikely you'd be outputting data a single character at a time using the char, but it is important to understand that the char and the string do not treat the plus sign the same. Alright, so let's try another operator we've seen before, and that's probably very familiar to you, the multiplication operator. Let's set the value of result to 2 first, just so that we are all on the same page before we go on. And now, Using multiplication, let's multiply it by 10. Result equals result times 10 semicolon. And we'll add a comment to describe what we expect the equation result to be. So one of the operands in this case is result, which has the value of 2, and we're multiplying 2 by 10, so the new value for result should be 20. Let's press enter to see if that's correct. And no surprises there. We get a value of 20 when we use result, which has a value of 2, the first operand, and we multiply it by 10, the second operand. Next, let's do a bit of division, remembering now that result has the value of 20 from the previous statement. Result equals result divided by 4 semicolon. And I'll add a comment with the expected result. And again, no surprises there. The result equals 5. So moving on, we'll now look at the remainder operator, which may not be as familiar to you as the last few we've reviewed. The remainder operator is represented in Java by the % sign. The remainder operator goes by several other names: modulus, modulo, or just plain mod for short. The remainder operator returns the remaining value from a division operation. If there is no remaining value, the result is 0. This table shows some examples. In the first example, 10 can be divided evenly by 5, so there is no remainder. In the second example, 10 can be divided evenly by 2, so there is no remainder. In the third example, 10 can't be divided evenly by 3, but we get 3 from the division, which gives us 9 with 1 remaining. Finally, using 1 as the right operand always gives us 0, so it's unlikely to add value to your code. You might ask, when would you ever use the remainder operator? It turns out that this is a pretty useful operator, although probably not used as often as many other operators. To see that working, we're going to set result back to 5. This is in case you have lost track of the value of result. And now we'll try out the remainder operator. I'll set result equal to result modulo 3, and a comment with the expected result. The way the modulus operator works is that you ask yourself, how many times does the right operand fit into the left operand, and then what is left over? What's left over is the result. In this case, 3 fits into 5 only once, and what is left over is 2. And if we press enter, result equals 2. So that is how the remainder operator works. I will talk more about the modulus operator later in the course. Let's review what we've learned in this video. This table shows the 5 operators we just reviewed. For all of the numeric types, whole numbers and decimals, the operators are mathematical operators as shown. Only one operator, the addition operator, is supported by string, but when used with a string, it means concatenation, not addition. None of the operators are applicable to a Boolean. Because the char is stored as a whole number literal, all the operations are applicable to a char. Alright, so that covers the most common operators, all of which have 2 operands. In the next video, we'll continue with operators, but we'll start looking at some shortcuts you can use when using operators. See you in the next video. In the previous video, I talked about operators, operands, and expressions. In this video, I'll continue the discussion about operators, and you'll see how they can be abbreviated to simplify code. In the next section of this course, we'll be transitioning to coding in a code editor called IntelliJ. I want to continue to prepare you for that environment by using the curly brace feature in JShell. So why use multiple statements in curly braces? First, it's a way to group statements together before executing them. It allows us to put statements on multiple lines, which is more natural and readable. We can execute the group of statements as a whole, which more closely resembles running code in Java. Although putting multiple statements on a single line is allowed in Java, it's not considered best practice for readability of code. I also want you to get used to writing system.out.print statements to view the output, because the way that JShell echoes output automatically does not usually happen when working outside of JShell with tools like IntelliJ. Another important restriction when putting coding statements in the curly braces is that we're required to include the semicolon. This will help you get back into the habit of ending every statement with a semicolon in case you've not been doing that in JShell. So let's do that. We'll start with a couple of simple statements. We start a group of statements with a left curly brace. I'll then press enter. We declare result to be an int and set it to 1. I'll increment result by 1 by typing result equals result plus 1. I'll print the result out. Finally, we execute the statements above by adding the closing right curly brace and pressing enter. Okay, so once again, there shouldn't be any surprises here. I'll press up arrow key and we'll see all the statements that we typed in the group. Note that by doing this, we can edit any line in this group. But first, let's talk about these statements. The variable result started out with a value of 1. We used an expression on the next line, adding 1 to the value in result and reassigning this new value to result. This is a very common way to increment a variable. Incrementing by 1 is a very common requirement in programming. Obviously, we can do the following. Result equals result plus 1, but we also have two other shorthand ways to do this same thing. The postfix increment operator is represented by plus plus after the variable name. This is a standalone statement and does not require an assignment. The compound assignment operator is represented by plus equals 1 after the variable name. This is also a standalone statement, but includes the assignment. Let's see how this works in JShell. So now, while I am in edit mode, I can use the arrow keys to move to the line that contains result equals result plus 1 and change it to result plus plus. Result plus plus, semicolon. We get the same result, result equals 2. Using this abbreviating operator known in Java as the postfix increment operator gives us the same thing as result equals result plus 1. There is another abbreviating operator for decrementing a variable by 1. This one is called the postfix decrement operator and looks the same as the increment operator, except it uses minus signs and not plus signs. Decrementing by 1 is also very common. We can decrement simply by using the equation result equals result minus 1 semicolon. But we also have two other shorthand ways to do this same thing. The postfix decrement operator is represented by minus minus after the variable name. This is a standalone statement and does not require an assignment. The compound assignment operator is represented by minus equals 1 after the variable name. This is also a standalone statement but does include the assignment. Let's use the postfix decrement operator. To use it, I will again use the up arrow key to retrieve our last set of statements, and I'll change the plus plus symbols after result to minus minus on the second statement and hit enter. Since we are now decrementing, it should come as no surprise the result is 0. So we've tried out the postfix increment and decrement operators, which allowed us to change a variable either by adding or subtracting by 1. You'll have noticed from the slides that another way was presented, and this was called a compound assignment operator. We want to press the up arrow so we can continue to edit the statements we've been using. In this instance, we want to replace result minus minus with result minus equals 1. This one might look a little weird at first, but it's just a shorthand or abbreviated way of writing result equals result minus 1. You'll find that you'll get used to these shorthand operators, and we'll be using them quite often in this course. You can use the compound assignment operator for addition as well. I'll do that next and go through the same process. I'll press the up arrow key in JShell, and then while we are in the edit mode, we'll replace minus equals with plus equals in the second statement. Because we are using addition, this statement result plus equals 1 has the same behavior as result equals result plus 1, and the final is that result equals 2. Unlike the increment and decrement operators, you can use the compound assignment to do more than increment or decrement by just 1. So let's increment by 5 next. I'll press the up arrow and once again change the second statement, changing result plus minus equals 1 to result plus equals 5. Now result equals 6 because we added 5 to the result instead of just adding 1 as before. We can decrement by any number we want as well. Let's make this a little more interesting by giving you a challenge. Using the code we have been using, either by scrolling up and editing the group of statements or creating a new group, initialize an int variable named result to the value of 10 rather than 1. Next, use the compound assignment operator with the minus sign to subtract a number from result using a value of your choice. Print the result out using the system.out print statement. Pause the video now and give that a try on your own. When you're done, start the video again, and I'll see you when you get back. Welcome back again. Were you able to successfully subtract a number from result? And if you were successful, did you use the compound assignment operator with the minus sign? Let's just walk through that together. In JShell, I am going to hit the up arrow. The first thing I'll do is change result equals 1 to result equals 10 in our first statement. In the second statement, I'll subtract 7 from the result using the compound operator. Remember, this is just shorthand for setting the value of result to result minus 7. This should give us result equals 3. So that's how you would use the minus compound operator subtracting an integer value from result. But maybe you were a little more adventurous in your own code. Maybe you decided to subtract a decimal number from result. Let's do that for a bit of fun next. Again, hit the up arrow and edit the second statement. I'll change the value from 7 to 5.5. What do you think the final result will be? Will this give us an error or give us the result 4.5? What do you think? Okay, so let's hit enter. So the result equals 4. Was that a surprise? I think it might have been, since it still kind of surprises me. Although I've said that this should be the same as the statement result equals result minus 5.5, actually, it isn't 100% true when you are using incompatible data types. When result is an int, the compound operator assignment, result minus equals 5.5, gives us a different result from what we expected, which was result equals result minus 5.5. In fact, the compound operator hides a potential error, the lossy conversion error we've seen several times. Let's examine what I've just said in code in JShell so you have a better understanding. Let's hit the up arrow to get into edit mode for this group of statements. Then I'll change that second line to what is generally assumed to be its replacement, result equals result minus 5.5. Executing this code gives us the error possible lossy conversion from double to int. Maybe this is what you thought the compound minus operator would have given us, but didn't. Let's hit the up arrow again and add a cast, but also use parentheses. I'll add the cast to an int, but because I need to cast the entire result, I'll enclose it in parentheses as well. What would have happened if I didn't put parentheses around the equation? Well, think about that for a minute. Java would have assumed we were only casting the variable result to an int, and we still would have got the same possible lossy conversion error. So now I'll press enter, and here our result is 4 again, as it was when we first used the compound minus operator. The compound assignment operator x minus equals y is often said to be x equals x minus y, but that's not entirely true if y is not the same data type as x. X minus equals y is really x equals left parentheses data type of x right parentheses and x minus y in parentheses. An implicit cast is done when using this operator so no error occurs, but unexpected results may happen, as we have seen. So summarising for our own sample of code, result minus equals 5.5 is really result equals int in parentheses, result minus 5.5 in parentheses. That might be a lot to take in right now, but what I really wanted to do with this example is encourage you to experiment. Never take a simple code segment for granted. Even something as simple as this challenge can be explored, changed and retested, and can enhance your understanding of the Java language. So how do we actually get the result to be 4.5 using the compound minus operator if that's what we really wanted? Let's make another change. Again, we arrow up, and this time change the data type for the variable result from an int to a double in the first statement. I'll move down to the next line and change it to be a compound minus operator. And now our result equals 4.5. Since our variable is now the same data type as the value being subtracted, using the compound assignment operator, we don't require any implicit casting, and the result is what you'd expect. Okay, so that was your challenge. I hope you found that interesting and a bit surprising. Finally, we have 2 more compound assignment operators to get through for multiplication and division. So let's do that real quick for the sake of completeness. I'll use the up arrow and change the second statement from result minus equals 5.5 to result times equals 1.5. Make sure the variable result is defined with a type of double, as you saw me do a moment ago. And now the result equals 15.0, which is 10 times 1.5.